Martina Bianchi, 26, is the middle child of a wealthy family from Milan that owns and operates a very successful chain of restaurants across the region. After years of having been systematically excluded from family decisions and treated like an outsider, Martina decides to leave for London in order to build her own career within the restaurant industry. When she returns to Milan 3 years later for her grandmother's birthday, she discovers that the family has planned to sell the family business without even informally businessing her. What they don't know is that Marlita has become a successful consultant in the restaurant industry and the means to completely change it. The cards on the table, of course, the smell of Grandma's tortellini still filled the air that Sunday evening in Milan, but for me, it had become the symbol of everything I had lost. Period. My name is Martina Bianchi, 26 years old, and I grew up believing that family was everything. My parents, Roberto and Elena Bianchi, owned the Roberto chain of 5 traditional restaurants, which my grandfather first established back in the 70s with a small single local venue in Brera. What was supposed to be our source of family pride became the sole reason I felt like nothing more than a ghost living within my very own home. At that point, I was sitting at the dining room table in della nostra villa, Penova, watching my family as they animatedly discussed the expansion of our business. My older brother Andrea, who is 30, gestured with confidence as he explained his detailed plans for opening a new local business in Rome. My younger sister, Sylvia, 23, nodded enthusiastically, already imagining the Instagram photo she would take in the capital. Dad, with Andrea taking care of operations and Sylvia taking care of social media marketing, we could really conquer the Roman market, Elena said. Her eyes sparkled with excitement. I sat there, with my degree in economics and business from Bocconi and 3 years of experience in the restaurant industry, completely ignored us. As always, Martina suddenly asked my grandmother, the only one who seemed to remember my existence, "What do you think of the idea of Rome?" Before I could manage a response, Dad intervened with that condescending tone of his which I knew all too well. "Martina is still young, Mom. Let's let her finish her studies first and figure out what she wants to do with her life." "Dad, I graduated 2 years ago," I said, trying to stay calm, "and I've already worked as an intern at Krakow and at Barbacoa Nasad. I have concrete ideas to modernize our approach to business and worse." Andrea laughed, shaking his head. "Martina, being a waitress for a few months doesn't qualify you to run a serious business, yes." My blood rushed to my head. I wasn't a waitress, Andrea. I was in the administrative part. I took courses in food costing. I analyzed the marketing strategies of Michelin-starred restaurants. "Enough," Mom intervened, raising her hand. "Let us not transform our Sunday dinner into an official company meeting." Andrea is entirely correct. These types of important decisions must be made by those who possess genuine experience in the field. I stood up abruptly from the table, my legs trembling from the sheer intensity of my anger and frustration. "You know what? You are right. I possess no experience within this family because you never provided me with any." I walked out of the dining room and headed toward my bedroom, while I heard Sylvia whispering, "There, now she is offended once again. It is always the same story with her." That night, lying in my bed with the lights of Milan filtering through the blinds, I finally made the decision that would change everything. My laptop sat upon my bedside table, and for hours I browsed job offers in London. The English restaurant industry was booming, and I possessed the linguistic skills and the training to attempt to build a life far from here. 2 weeks later, I had a Skype interview with Artwell and Associates, a consulting firm specializing in the food and beverage sector. The director of human resources, James Morrison, was deeply impressed by my professional background and my profound knowledge of authentic Italian cuisine. "Miss Bianchi said," with his British accent, "we were searching for someone possessing exactly his background for our new project involving consulting services for Italian restaurants located in London. When could it start?" I didn't think twice. I could be there by the end of the month. The evening I announced to my family my decision to move to London, the atmosphere in the house went cold, usual. We were all gathered together once again for Sunday dinner, and when I finally found the courage to speak, the words came out in an entirely unstoppable stream. "I've accepted a job in London. I'm leaving in 10 days." The silence that followed was deafening. Dad slowly put down his fork. Mom put her hand to her chest. Andrea looked at me as if I had gone mad. London, repeat Sevilla. But why so far away? Here in Milan there are opportunities. What opportunities? I exploded. The ones where I am treated like a child, where my ideas count for nothing, where after years of study and preparation I am still considered far too young to finally have a say in the matter. Roberto cleared his throat. Martina, if there was no misunderstanding, Dad. There was a clear choice. You chose Andrea for management and Sylvia for marketing. I never had a chance, but you are part of this family, Mom shouted, her eyes watering. You can't just walk away. Look me in the eye, I said, standing up. When was the last time you asked my opinion on something related to the business? When did you ever make me feel part of something no one could answer, Andrea? When have you ever made me feel like I was a part of something no one could answer me? Andrea tried one last approach. Martina, listen, if you truly want to be involved in the company, we can talk about it. Perhaps there is something. No, Andrea. It is too late. I need to prove to myself what I am worth far away from here. I need to build something of my own. Grandma, who until that moment had remained silent, struggled to her feet and hugged me tightly. Go, my little one, she whispered in my ear. Show them what you are capable of. Peace. Have you ever felt like you had to prove yourself away from those who should believe in you the most too? Oh. What I did not know then was that my departure for London would trigger a series of events that 3 years later would bring me back to Milan under circumstances that my family could have never in any way been able to imagine. The London rain drummed against the windows of my office in Canary Wharf as I went over the details of the deal that would change everything for the umpteenth time. 3 years had passed since the day I had left Milan with a suitcase and a broken heart. Now sitting at my desk in my office overlooking the Thames. Martina Bianchi, Senior Consultant D. Hartwell & Associates, and owner of Del 60 per CD, London Italian Hospitality Ltd., is the consulting firm I had founded after 2 years of extraordinary success. My phone rang. It was James Morrison, my former boss, who had become a minority partner. Martina, the documents for the acquisition of Milan are ready. Are you sure you want to proceed? His voice betrayed a certain concern. Absolutely, James. It's time. What was about to happen was the inevitable result of many long months of meticulous planning. I had discovered, through my industry contacts, that Roberto was going through serious financial difficulties. The pandemic had struck the Italian restaurant industry hard, and my father, stubborn as he always was, had refused to modernize his approach to the business, and that was the end of it. Through a London investment firm, I had made a purchase offer for the entire chain at Roberto's. An offer Roberto Bianchi couldn't refuse considering the debts he had accumulated. My assistant, David, knocked on the door. Miss Bianchi, her grandmother, was on the phone from Italy. I took the call with my heart pounding. Grandma, how are you? Martina, my darling. Her voice was weak but determined. You need to come home. It's my birthday in 2 days. I'm 85 and I want the whole family back together. Tigia Faraka. I hadn't spoken to my parents since I left. A few occasional calls to Grandma, a few formal messages at Christmas, nothing more. Grandma, please, Martina, this could be my last birthday. I'm not asking for much, just that you be here with us. How could I say no? Okay, Grandma. I'll be there. 2 days later, the plane from Italy landed at Malpensa. I had carefully chosen my outfit, a dark gray Armani suit, a Hermes bag, and a pair of Louboutin shoes to complete the look. Nothing too ostentatious, but elegant enough to make people understand that things were happening. Change of scene, the taxi dropped me off in front of the family villa in Porta Nuova. My heart was pounding in my chest as I rang the doorbell. Mom opened the door, and for a moment, she was speechless. Martina, you are beautiful. You look different. Hi, Mom, I said, hugging her briefly. How are you? Good. Come in. Grandma is waiting for you. When I entered the house, everything seemed smaller than I remembered. Andrea was already in the living room with his new wife, Francesca, and Sylvia with her boyfriend, Marco. Everyone turned toward me with expressions that ranged from a sense of curiosity to one of discomfort. "Martina!" Grandma shouted, struggling to get up from her favorite chair. "My little girl is back!" I hugged her tightly, smelling the familiar scent of her perfume and the warmth I had missed so much. "Happy birthday, Grammy! I brought you a present from London." I handed her an elegant box which contained a tea set made of fine Royal Crown Derby porcelain. Her eyes lit up. "It's beautiful, darling, but the best present is you being here." Andrea approached, extending his hand formally. "Martina, welcome back. How's work in London?" "Very good, thank you. And you? How are the restaurants?" A shadow crossed her face, but she recovered quickly. "Everything under control, as always." Dad came in from the garden at that moment, and when he saw me he stopped dead in his tracks. For a few seconds we looked at each other without saying anything. "Roberto," Grandma intervened. "Look how beautiful our Martina has become." "Hello, Dad," I said, coming over to hug him. "Oi." Martina responded with a stiff, formal hug. "Welcome home." The birthday dinner took place in an atmosphere of polite tension. Everyone was making polite conversation, but you could sense that there were things left unsaid hanging in the air like storm clouds. It was during dessert that Sylvia, probably to lighten the sad, asked the wrong question. "So Martina, tell us about London. What exactly do you do?" "I'm a consultant in the restaurant industry," I replied simply. "But what kind of consulting?" Andrea insisted, using that a slightly condescending tone I remembered all too well. "I assist restaurants that are struggling to restructure their business, to modernize their processes, and to locate new investors." "Interesting," Dad said, but his attention was clearly elsewhere. It was then that Sylvia said something that made my blood run cold. "Dad, when are you going to tell him about the sale?" The silence that followed was as heavy as lead. Dad shot a furious look at Sylvia, who immediately realized she had said something she shouldn't have. "What sale?" I asked. My voice was shaking slightly, but Mom cleared her throat nervously, miedously. "Martina, maybe we should talk about this later, when we're more relaxed." "No," I said firmly, putting down my fork. "I want to know. What sale now?" Andrea and Sylvia exchanged glances, while Dad appeared to be suddenly taken with an intense interest in the glass of wine he was holding. "Dad," I insisted, "what is Sylvia talking about?" Roberto finally raised his eyes, and in that gaze I saw a profound weariness that I had never noticed in him before. "We have received an offer to take over the business," he said slowly. "It is from an English investment group. The offer is very generous." My heart began to beat much faster, but I did my very best to maintain a completely neutral expression. "Are you going to accept?" "We are considering it," she replied evasively. "Without telling me?" "Martina," Andrea interjected, "you live in London now, and are no longer involved in the family business." "I am no longer involved because you all chose not to involve me," I replied, feeling the old anger resurface within me. "Enough," Mom said abruptly. "Let's not ruin Grandma's birthday with these discussions." I stood up from the table, my legs shaking with emotion. "You're right, this is not the time." I went out onto the terrace to get a breath of fresh air. Milan stretched out before my eyes, the lights of the city twinkling in the night. Behind me I heard Grandma's footsteps. "My little one," she said softly, "I know that you are angry." I turned toward her, my eyes becoming filled with a sense of unshed tears. "Grandma, I can't believe it. They're selling everything Grandpa built and they haven't even told me anything. She took my hands in her wrinkled but still warm ones. "Perhaps," he said with a mysterious smile, "the time has arrived for you to show everyone exactly what you are capable of doing now." That sentence struck me like a bolt of lightning. I looked into Grandma's eyes and saw something that surprised me. Did she know? I don't know how, but she did know. And have you ever found yourself in a situation where you had to decide whether to reveal a secret that could change everything? That night in my old room, I picked up the phone and called James in London. "James, it's Martina. Let's speed things up. I want the takeover offer to arrive on my father's desk tomorrow morning. What was it to happen would change the internal balance of the entire family for all time to come. The sun was filtering through the curtains of my old room when my dad's phone rang at 8 o'clock in the morning. From the kitchen where I was making coffee for Grandma, I heard his confused voice answer the call. Yes, it's Roberto Bianchi. What do you mean? An urgent appointment, but today is Sunday. My heart was pounding so hard, I was afraid the whole house would hear it. After 3 years of planning, the moment of truth had arrived. Sierra, Roberto, Mom asked from the dining room. Our accountant says that the final documentation regarding the acquisition offer has finally arrived and he would like to see us as soon as possible and eligible. 2 hours later, the entire family was gathered at the family law firm in downtown Milan. Attorney Martinelli, who had been handling the Bianchi family's business for 20 years, wore a serious expression as he arranged the documents on his desk. The proposal is very detailed, he began, taking off his glasses to clean them nervously. London Italian Hospitality Ltd is offering €8.5 million for the complete acquisition of the chain from Roberto. In a all debts would be paid immediately. Andrea Fisio Piano, $8.5 million is much more than we expected. There is, however, a special clause, the lawyer continued, that requires a meeting with all the family members. Before family members move, you could cut the tension with numbers. Andrea kept straightening his tie. Sylvia was compulsively checking her phone. Mom was wringing her hands nervously. They should be here at any moment now, said the lawyer, Mr. Martinelli, while looking at his watch. It was then that a knock came at the door. Come in, said the lawyer. Come in, said the lawyer. The door opened and James Morrison entered, impeccably dressed in his dark suit, followed by a man I didn't recognize, David Chen, our acquisitions lawyer. Good morning, said James in his perfect Italian. I am James Morrison, representing London Italian Hospitality Ltd. Everyone stood up to greet him except for me as I remained seated to observe the expressions of my family. There is a problem, James stated while looking around the entire room. Someone who is very important is currently missing for us to finalize this deal. Someone is missing, repeated Dad, confused. We are all here, my wife, my children, and I. James smiled. The most important person of all is missing. The CEO and majority owner of London Italian Hospitality Limited, Bun. The blood ran cold in the veins of everyone present. Faces turned expectantly toward the door, waiting to see someone else enter. It was at that exact moment that I slowly rose from my chair. Hello family, I said in a firm voice. Allow me to introduce myself officially. I am Martina Bianchi, CEO and founder of London Italian Hospitality Ltd. The silence that followed was truly deafening. Andrea turned as white as a bed sheet. Sylvia let her phone drop to the floor. Mum brought a hand up to her mouth. Dad stared at me as though I were a ghost. This is impossible, Andrea stammered. You work as a consultant for someone else. I used to work as a consultant, I corrected him. Now I own one of the most important food and beverage consultancies in all of London. In just 3 years, we have acquired 17 restaurants, restructured 23 businesses in difficulty, and generated a turnover of £35 million. James opened his briefcase and pulled out a folder. Miss Bianchi built her company by specializing in the rescuing of family-run Italian restaurants. She is considered one of the most brilliant entrepreneurs in the entire industry. But how? Mom whispered. How did I do it? I sat back down, crossing my legs with the confidence that only 3 years of success can provide. I did what you always told me I was incapable of doing. I built something of my own. Dad finally found his voice. Why? Why like this? Why is it that when I left for London, none of you ever called to see how I was doing? No one ever showed interest in what I was doing. You just assumed I would fail. I stood up and walked to the window that looked out onto Via Emozioni. Do you know what I did the first year? I worked for 16 hours every day, 7 days of the week. I slept on an office couch for several months in order to save money on my rent. I studied every single night after work in order to perfect my professional business English. I turned to them. The second year I opened my own company and saved the first restaurant from bankruptcy. It was a Sicilian trattoria in Camden that was about to close. In 6 months I transformed it into one of the most sought-after places in London. Martina, Dad said in a broken voice, if only I had needed help. I needed help 3 years ago, Dad. I needed you all to believe in me, to give me a fair chance. Instead, you preferred to believe that I was too young, too inexperienced, too female, to run a serious business. Andrea, he tried to say something, but I stopped him with a gesture. Now let's get down to business. Roberto's in debt for 2.3 million euros. Your suppliers won't give you any more credit. The Brera location has lost 40% of its customers in the last 2 years. The one in Porta Garibaldi is considering not renewing the lease. Everyone's incredulous gazes turned to me. How do you know? Andrea began. Andrea, this is what I do for a living. Before I make an offer, study everything. Balance sheets, cash flows, market, positioning, competitor, strategies. I know that your turnover has dropped by 35% delle scorse. Dad sat down heavily. He suddenly looked much older than his 60 years. So you're here to buy us cheap? No, Dad. I'm here to save us. I opened my bag and pulled out a document. This is not merely a takeover bid, it is a comprehensive plan for a complete corporate restructuring. I'm keeping the Roberto brand. I'll keep all the current employees. I'll keep you in management too if you want. If we want, repeat Sylvia. Yes, because now I make the rules. My voice hardened. Andrea, if you want to stay as general manager, you'll have to prove your skills day in and day out. No more birthright promotions. I turn around, Sylvia. You have a talent for marketing, but you'll have to learn to work with real budgets and measurable goals. Finally, I looked at Dad. And you, Dad, if you want to stay, you'll have to accept that your daughter has become your boss. The silence that followed was broken by Grandma, who began to clap her hands slowly. Rova, my little one, she said with eyes shining with pride wide. This is what I dreamed for you. Did you know that? I asked her. A grandmother always knows how to smile. And I knew that one day you would show everyone what you are capable of. Dad slowly stood up and approached me. For a moment I thought he was going to get angry, but instead he gave me a big hug. I'm sorry, he whispered in my ear. I'm sorry I didn't believe in you. I am so sorry that I pushed you to leave, Dad, I said, while I returned the tight embrace. Maybe I should have gone away. Perhaps I needed to prove to myself first what I was truly worth. When we parted, her eyes were shining. You have become stronger than all of us put together. 6 months later, I was sitting in my new Milanese office on the top floor of the completely renovated Brera restaurant. Through the window I could see people queuing up to enter. Da Roberto, a renewed tradition, had the most sought-after place in the area once again. Andrea was working as our general manager. Surprisingly, he had proven himself to be much more competent once he had to earn respect instead of taking it for granted. Sylvia had turned our social media presence into a genuine success story by documenting the rebirth of the family business with both authenticity and creativity. Dad came into the office every morning, no longer as an absolute master, but as an expert consultant who shared his knowledge without imposing his personal decisions. For the first time in our lives, we spoke as equals. The phone rang. It was James from London. Martina, we have received an interesting proposal. A group of Italian investors wanted us to take charge of the relaunch of a pizza chain in Naples. As I looked out the window at the streets of Milan where it all began, then at the future that stretched out before me, full of possibilities. Tell me everything, I replied, smiling. Tell me everything, I replied with a smile. I had learned that sometimes you have to leave in order to come back home. That sometimes you have to prove your worth to the world before you can manage to prove it to your own family, and that the sweetest success is not the one you achieve against someone, but the one that you build together with the people you love. That my story demonstrates that it does not matter how different or inadequate you may feel to the people who should know you the best. Hey, what truly matters is to never stop believing in yourself, even when it seems like no one else does. Period. And have you ever had to walk away from something in order to be able to truly appreciate it? Tell me about your own experience in the comments. Sometimes the strongest family is the one that rebuilds itself after being broken, because every single piece has been chosen consciously with love and mutual respect. What?